Sometimes to truly understand history, you have to look beyond the slogans and ask harder questions. Because one of the most unsettling truths about modern history is this. For America, war has not always been only about survival, justice, or freedom. Very often, it was also about money. But not in the exaggerated conspiracy story sense, rather in a quieter, more structural way that most people never noticed. While ordinary families were sending their children to the front, while people were cutting back on food, trying to save, there was another process running in the background, a financial system that had learned how to turn war into opportunity. And to understand that, we have to go back to where the story really begins. Europe had been dragged into war. Millions of soldiers were at the front, millions were dying, and governments were sinking into debt faster than ever before in history. And at that very moment, America did not remain a passive observer. It stepped in, not first with soldiers, but with banks and industry. Especially Wall Street, granting massive loans, supplying food, steel, coal, and munitions. The amounts were so large that they exceeded the U.S. federal budget at the time, and every shipment crossing the Atlantic came with interest. The United States officially entered the war in 1917, but by then the financial system was already deeply embedded in it. If Britain and France lost, Wall Street would lose too. From that moment on, national security and financial interest became almost the same thing. The public was told to buy Liberty bonds as a patriotic duty. Posters, rallies, celebrities, school campaigns. The entire country was financially mobilized. And yes, people truly believed they were helping. In fact, they were. But the biggest gains, they didn't go to small savers. They went to those at the top. And a very important lesson was learned there. War could be financed through debt. Once a system learns that, it does not easily let go. Years passed. The world was once again in flames. Roosevelt called America the arsenal of democracy. That was true. But it wasn't only an arsenal of weapons. It was also an arsenal of financial instruments, war bonds, government-backed defense contracts, central bank-supported financing. More than 85 million Americans bought war bonds. People didn't just support the war emotionally. They supported it with their savings. And while the public made sacrifices, companies scaled up production, profits were guaranteed through contracts, banks kept the money flowing. War was no longer only a catastrophe. It had become an economic engine. While battles raged at the front, something even bigger was happening in the background. The very nature of money was changing. The link to gold weakened. The dollar grew stronger. And with Bretton Woods in 1944, the dollar became the world's reserve currency. Europe was devastated. America emerged far stronger, militarily, industrially, financially, not because war was good, but because the system had learned how to generate profit around it. The Cold War didn't just create armies, it created new industries, aerospace, electronics, energy, defense manufacturing. Economists gave this a name, military Keynesianism. Using defense spending to keep the economy alive, what was once temporary turned into a permanent structure. War spending was no longer limited to wartime. It became part of the economy. Vietnam cost the U.S. more than $100 billion. Militarily, the outcome was bad. But financially, contracts were paid, suppliers profited, debt remained, and society carried the burden through taxes and inflation. In 1971, Nixon completely ended the dollar's link to gold. From that moment on, the dollar was backed not by metal, but by power, confidence and the weight of the American economic military system. War had not only changed politics, it had changed money itself. Oil was priced in dollars. The U.S. regional presence helped maintain this system, and now energy, money, and geopolitical power moved along the same track. The financial architecture globalized and became even more intertwined with conflict. The Gulf War, Iraq, Afghanistan. Trillions were spent, countless lives were lost, but the financial machine did not stop. Contracts continued, debt continued, interest continued. Because in this system, Shiri's, wars don't have to be won to be profitable. They only have to exist. Today, defense spending in the United States is still one of the largest pillars of the economy. Industries depend on it. Banks finance it. Politicians protect it. And whether or not there is an active war, the mechanism keeps running. War is not experienced only on distant battlefields. You feel it here, in taxes, in the cost of living, in inflation, in public debt. Because once war spending becomes an economic model, conflict never fully disappears. If this perspective helped you see history a little differently, stay with us. Here we don't just talk about the past, we try to understand the systems that shape today. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe.